Howdy, and welcome to Risky Standard, an actual play podcast featuring a rowdy group of best friends playing tabletop role-playing games together. On this season of Risky Standard, we're playing The Wildsea by Felix Isaacs, a tabletop role-playing game of sailing and discovery across a vibrant treetop sea. You can find a link to the show notes to buy that digitally over on itch.io, or you can pick up a beautiful hardcover of it over at the MythWorks website. Link to that in the show notes as well. I am your host and GM, or as the Wildsea calls it, Firefly, Mitch Brewster. You can find me over on Blue Sky at Magnesium B. You can find the show over on Blue Sky at Risky Standard, or you can find us over on the show's Discord. There's a link to that in the show notes. We're always in there chatting about the show, sharing maps, images, inspiration stuff from the episodes as they're airing, along with a few hints and previews of what is to come in future seasons. You can also find us over on the show's Patreon. Link to that in the show notes as well. And over on the Patreon, you can help support the work we're doing here, help us make the show, and find a little bit of bonus content as well, some bonus episodes. With me today, I've got Pete Loftus.
That's right. Welcome to Wildsea listeners, and I am Pete, aka Wild Pete. For this, that's bad. I'm playing as Calithiel, a isopod dredger, little six-armed scoundrel.
We've also got Malcolm Hall here.
What is up, risk takers? What's up, gamesters of all varieties? Once again, I'm here. I'm Malcolm Hall. I am playing Reese Kane, the ardent word bearer from the beautiful, willowy city of High Sonder. Yesterday, I hurt my hand opening up a backpack. I love being 35. You could follow me on Instagram. It's Malcolm Hall if you want to see pictures of what I look like.
Where we're going to be raising money to get him a softer backpack with no sharp edges.
I was reaching my backpack to give Mitch a beer, and I hurt myself.
What are friends for?
I know. And don't ever say I didn't stick my neck out for you.
Thank you, hero.
And lastly, of course, we have Timothy Manns.
Good to be here with you all. And I am... Okay, well, certainly that's very funny that I like everyone who's listening. Okay, crazy. I'll be playing, once again, your favorite character, Hexam Zephyro, the Mothran. Beautiful mind of science and storm. Let's get into
large, red, glowing eyes that peer at you through your windows at night.
Yeah. Coming from Point Pleasant.
And if you love standing on a bridge as cars pass by, hit the Discord. Show us some of your favorite plots of land to stand.
Oh,
really good intro today.
Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's a
Really
winner.
great intro. Me and Mitch, I know for a fact, are hungover.
We all had a great 8 hours of sleep last night, and we're rip-roaring ready to go. And big shout-outs, of course, out in the wings, our producer, Liam Doherty, overseeing all of this with a big smile on his face. Shout-outs to Liam.
And a big clockwork pipe organ deep beneath the ship's hold.
And here we are. That is the intrepid crew of the research vessel, the Verdigale, who we met in our last episode as we got our first introduction to the strange and wonderful world of the Wildsea. And in this episode, we're going to follow the crew of the Verdigale, along with their captain, Claremont Montclair, as they draw up plans to take their journey towards the bustling freeport known as Caldermere. And so, without too much further ado, I think let's jump right in, and we can kind of follow these guys as they set off on their first journey across the perilous treetop waves. So yeah, I think, we can kind of zoom out here, kind of figuratively and literally. Camera widens out to kind of give us a shot of the whole ship as I think you guys kind of start getting ready for a journey. We're playing now, right? One of the kind of primary modes of play in the Wildsea is journeying. We are on a ship on the waves, And a lot of this game is kind of taken up by the actual process of going from place to place. And as we do so, we're going to roll some dice and consult some charts and kind of see what we experience on the waves. There's a little bit of like a random encounter element to the Wildsea, which is fun. It's kind of a different thing than we've ever done before as a group. So I'm excited to kind of tackle that challenge and see how we do with it. And so, I think visually, yeah, right, we get here is like the checklist moment, right? Everyone is making sure all of the batten down the hatches, right? The ports are all sealed. The engine starts cycling as it powers up to eventually start driving this chainsaw. And so there's kind of a sequence of play that we're going to follow for every journey that we do, right? It's 3 steps. There is the departure, which is where we get ready to set sail. And this is where we will kind of lay out the terms of what this journey looks like. And, you'll also have a chance to do any last minute preparations that you want to make before you hit the road. Then we will go through progress and encounters. And this is the bulk of the journeying, right? Is making certain choices about how you decide to travel, and then possibly coming across different encounters, moments of tension or oddity that might require you to make a choice or might give you like an entire challenge to deal with. And then eventually, once you have finished the journey, we will arrive at our destination, and we will talk about how to approach and what you want to do when you arrive there. But let's roll back first to departure. So normally, we will not be always leaving from, just sort of a random spot on the Wildsea. We'll be leaving from ports. So departure is this chance for you to make preparations, hire extra undercrew, take on passengers, pick up cargo, kind of plan your route, or maybe like hunt for information. Obviously, I don't know that there's going to be much of that here. This is also the moment where we decide what our destination is. And that is something we've already kind of decided. Claremont has decided for us. We are heading towards the bustling port of Caldermere, in the reach known as the Shaking Boughs, which we are kind of like on the transitional zone of right now. We're about to enter this new part of the sea. The game also gives us a chance to plan a route if we have charts or maps already on hand. These are kind of like items in the game that we can consume to give us a bonus on our journeys or to make things a little easier. We don't have one of those to start with. We have not charted the way that we're going yet. And so we will be kind of at the mercy of the Wildsea as we travel forward. And when we go on a journey, everyone has to decide what they're going to be doing on that journey. There are 5 roles that a player can take while they're on a journey. 2 of them are essential. There's stuff that you guys have to do to make journeying happen. And for the sake of ease of gameplay, we're also going to say that Claremont is probably never going to be doing one of these roles. He's going to be around. He's going to be doing things on the ship, but he will not be taking over like a player function unless you really need him to. And then maybe there's a dice roll to see how that goes. So the first essential role is that someone has to be at the helm. And when at the helm, you control the ship's speed and direction. This is the person who's going to decide how fast we're going, which will have further consequences that we'll detail in just one second. The second essential role, this is something someone has to do, is that someone has to be on watch. And the person who is on watch is going to roll a dice to see what the ship might encounter as the journey progresses. And then there are 3 other optional stations that someone can man during a journey. Someone can tend the engine, which gives them the option of overloading it with fuel for a burst of speed, or for trying to run it silently if you're trying to be stealthy. Someone could also be cartographizing, which is keeping a lookout for landmarks and distinctive places, using them to sketch out a new chart, which will make traveling back and forth in the same area easier next time. Or someone can watch the weather. And just like it sounds, when you watch the weather, you're trying to gain some idea of what future weather conditions will be like based on your current meteorological and environmental assessments. So maybe we could kind of assign those roles now, kind of get an image of like what it looks like as each person takes their station, and then I will talk about the mechanics of journeying and what we're going to do next.
Yeah, I think this is like the all hands on deck, jump to it, men. Like you can hear the kind of like chimes, the bells, I think, as the ship kind of moves to readiness. I mean, we don't have a big crew. There's only 4 of us, but I think on the Verdigale, on a Montclair ship, it's like this is sort of the protocol, right? Like we're sort of moving into the position. I'm gonna take helm. I think, unless anyone has any, other thoughts to that. Cal, I think spreading out across this map, whatever, like when the bells ring, I think drops the sextant. We've got a plan heading up to the pilot cabin, and I'll take the helm roll on the journey.
It's worth saying that you said pilot's cabin here. It is like worth noting, like the cabin, right? The place where the pilot of a Wildsea ship sits is usually obviously up on the deck somewhere, but enclosed also, because there will be times that you will be diving below the surface of the treetops, and the last thing that you want is like a face full of branch as you're trying to steer the boat.
Yeah, I imagine it sort of like probably top deck. In my mind, the Verdigale is like a smallish ship. Maybe there's 3 levels, right? We've got the library, the underdeck, and this top, and I think it's like pilot cabin and probably captain's quarters. And the pilot cabin, I imagine being like a glass bubble, right, of some kind here. And the prow, the wheel, prow is the front of the ship. The wheel, anyway, is like sort of in this bubble, inset, I think, in like dark wood. A Montclair ship like this, I'm imagining brass and gold, like sort of greebled, sort of antique-looking accoutrement. There's probably like a kind of brass horn echo box right across the ship where I can like kind of communicate down to the engine.
I like that. So why don't we just go around the circle? Reese, what role are you taking on this journey?
I'll be taking the role of navigator.
Cool. That's not one of the roles.
What is it? Wait, what is the?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be saying costumes.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, shut up.
I'll be the ship's juggler.
Oh my God! I know we just went over them. Okay. Okay. We'll take that from the top.
Reese, what are you doing on this journey today?
I'll be taking the role of on watch.
Great. You are going to be our
taking
scout.
First watch.
Keeping an eye out for what we might encounter. Yes. So that leaves you, Hexam. You have like a little bit more wiggle room here. All 3 of these are optional. You could also not do any of these, in which case it's just assumed that you're like around and ready to help out.
Yeah, I think Hex, is tending to the engine every day. One of the aspects of the character is deckside engineer. So he can do tiny incremental actions to keep the boat running in good order. So I think it's, down in the engine room, making sure all the batteries are charged and, no Krezerin is sneaking in and corrupting anything. Running smooth. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so we have Calathiel at the helm, piloting the Verdigale as we set off on this journey. And we have Reese on watch, keeping an eye for what's going to come ahead of us, and Hexam will be tending the engine, kind of there if we need him to repair it or boost it or do whatever. So the next thing that we do is that I am going to set a number of what the game calls tracks for your journey. Tracks are kind of one of the primary mechanics of the Wildsea. If you've ever played Blades in the Dark or any of those other Forged in the Dark games, these will probably be very familiar to you. They're similar to clocks in those games. What a track is in this game, in the most basic way of saying it, is a string of boxes or circles with a name that are filled or marked to measure progress towards either an event, an accomplishment, or a danger. They could be a 2-box track, it could be a 5-box track, right? But these are kind of like the primary modes that we measure progress, are also the kind of like, they can also be used to measure like the destruction of something, or like if an impending event is going to happen. Or in this case, for journeys, the first thing that I'm going to do is set a progress track. And this is kind of the essential journey-related track. It's marked every time you make progress towards your destination. Once the last box on this progress track is marked, you have reached your destination. The length of the progress track is decided by me, based on things like your proposed route. If you're taking a more direct path, it could be shorter, vice versa. But it is hidden. I'm not going to tell you how many boxes this journey is. So you will not know like how long you have left without doing some work to try and find out. And there's some other boxes here that I could, some other tracks that I could also create. I might create one for risk, if there are natural threats or other kinds of things that are possibly in your way. But to start with today, I'm going to just take a second here. I'm going to create our journey track. And this will be what tells us how far you have to go before you get to Caldermere. So why don't we go through the roles? Because you each have a decision to make before we play. Calithiel, you're at the helm. And when you're at the helm, you have direct control over the ship. You can choose one of the following 3 options. Each of these has a narrative and a mechanical consequence. You can choose to cut a path. Narratively, this means you travel at decent speed while keeping the ship and crew as safe as possible. You give whoever is on watch a good chance of spotting oddities early. Mechanically, this means you'll mark a single box on your hidden progress track, and when the watch roll is made, you can usually choose whether or not to encounter whatever is sighted or steer clear of it. Alternatively, you could choose to forge ahead. Your passage across the waves is rough but swift, the roar of engines and cracking of branches heralding your arrival. Watch is almost a formality. You have little chance of coming within visual range with anything without being spotted yourself when you forge ahead. But mechanically, you get to mark 2 boxes on your progress track, and when a watch roll is made, you usually blunder straight into whatever encounter is rolled.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, the last one, which you're not going to be doing here, you could drop anchor. And this is a chance to stop and rest during your journey, to try and heal yourself, maybe heal the ship or repair the ship if it's been damaged, stuff like that. So do you want to tell us, do you want to cut a path or do you want to forge ahead?
Oh, yes. I think this is Calithiel's first time getting to sit in the, cockpit for the ship. And I think chest full of inspiration from Montclair's impassionate, pitch to define the shape of the Wildsea. I'm hitting just full bore. We're going to go forge ahead.
All right.
We got a path, we got a destination, and I think I just looked this up because I actually did not. The image in my head is clear, but it's called the Chadbourn, it's called the Chadbourn, or an engine order telegraph. Is like that round, levered wheel on a ship where you kind of crank it back, and it rings those bells. The original idea is that you would ring the telegraph to communicate downstairs to the engine room, and I think we kind of pull that back to full speed, right? And it's as we, I think, could chunk, and it starts to lurch forward. I think you can hear the ship groan, just like when you start using a chainsaw, it revs up, you kind of got to get it to bite to really pull forward. There's just suddenly a din of activity as this, gnawing bite stirs to life.
Great. So maybe we can cut to the engine room briefly here to cover what Hexam is doing before we talk about what Reese is doing on watch, because watch is maybe the most mechanically complex of these 3 roles. Hexam, you are in the engine room, right? And worth stating again, right? Yeah. The Verdigale has a particular kind of engine. Like we mentioned earlier, there's all these different possibilities, these different choices you can make when you're choosing an engine. And the Verdigale has ceramic batteries. It has volt-storing batteries rigged up to regulate and distribute power. Their crackling hum makes nearby insects and superstitious undercrew uneasy.
Which is great for me as a big bug guy.
And these are also, the other kind of notable thing about these is that they are fueled by lightning strikes, right? And so one thing you could possibly do with the Tempest is also to call storms, which we might have to do if the boat runs out of fuel.
Correct, yeah.
And so down in the engine room, right, I imagine maybe a lot of the engine is ceramic, right? I think that's a kind of a cool visual here amongst there's ceramic, and then there's the bone of the actual Leviathan bone that makes up the whole of the ship, kind of playing off each other. And then there's the wood and steel that have filled in the gaps of the skeleton. But what you can do while you are tending the engine, you can choose to, as the move says, you can choose to tend to the engine, right? Narratively, you're just kind of there, like you were saying a second ago, kind of poking and tweaking. It doesn't give you anything, it doesn't cost you anything, but it means you're right there if any problems arise. Alternatively, you can choose to either overload the engine or muffle it. Overloading will make it move faster, will make you go a little quicker on your journey, but it requires a suitable resource for fuel, and vice versa. Muffling the engine means you need something to quiet it, but it will make it easier to be stealthy if you need to while you're on the Wildsea.
Yeah, I don't think we need to overload it right now. We're just doing a regular head out. But yeah, again, I think it's just checking to make sure the wires that connect from the lightning rod, like masked sort of element, that connects and everything is there so that if it needs to, we can overload it when the time is ready.
Let's circle back around here then. Reese, you are on watch. When you are on watch, you have two choices. You can spend some resources to make a discovery, which I think let's skip today and we'll come back around to in the future. But making a discovery is really cool, and it is a way that the player can kind of use some of their resources to kind of seize control of the GM's chair for a minute and kind of put something on the Wildsea that we're about to encounter. They don't have full control over it. They don't get to decide what the vibe is when we get there, but it is a chance for a player to kind of throw something right in front of us. But for the sake of learning the game today, I think we should take the second option, which is to leave things up to chance and make a watch roll. And so as the person who's on watch, you are going to roll a single d6. And there is a table in the book, this is on page 73, that we're going to look at. The dice that you roll will give us a result on this table. If you roll a 6, it means that it is a result of peace. An entire watch passing without anything out of the ordinary. It'll be a quieter moment on the Wildsea. If you roll a 4 or a 5, that is order. It's an encounter with one of the various cultures living across the Wildsea. It could be a relic, it could be an outpost, it could be a survivor of some terrible disaster, but it is something of the world, right? Of culture, of people. Or if you roll a 1, 2, or a 3, it's an encounter with something born of the wild unknown or a feature of the Wildsea. It could be a natural feature of the waves, it could be a change in weather, it could be a place, some kind of natural resource, or it could be like a creature. We won't know. But while you are rolling that, I am also going to roll 1d6 to determine how dangerous whatever you encounter is. So why don't we both make our 1d6 rolls, and then we can kind of, in the fiction, talk about what the start of this journey looks like, and then have our first encounter of the game.
All right, rolling 1d6.
And I'm going to secretly roll 1d6 at the same time.
It's a 1.
Alrighty.
What does it mean?
Do I need to actually roll, or do I just mark 2 because I did the Forge Ahead roll?
At the helm, you don't roll anything yet. I'm going to mark 2 on your progress track because, you are forging ahead. You are going faster. So you rolled a 1, Malcolm, you said?
That's correct.
So like I said a second ago, a 1 means that it is a result of nature, an encounter with something born of the wild unknown or a feature of the sea. And then I rolled a secret dice. I'll tell you guys what it was in a second. Why don't you give me a little bit of the fiction here? What does it look like as the Verdigale starts to take off? And what does it look like to be on watch for Reese? Also, that's another big one. Maybe we could get a little moment with each character as we kind of start.
Reese takes watch. He gets on to the Outrider, which we do not have a name for yet. Risk takers, if you want to go ahead and give us some suggestions in Discord, we will take them, or I will take them very seriously. I suppose it is my responsibility to name it. Mm-hmm. The Outrider looks like it looks like a sort of long tube. Towards the back end of it, there is a sort of seat. When you sit on it, it is kind of like like a faster racing motorcycle or like a crotch rocket. So you're kind of leaning forward. There's pedals and handles. It's sort of like a long tube, and on the inside there is a mulcher that runs the length. If you were to look at it straight on, if it were coming for you, it would kind of look like a lamprey's mouth. It's full of teeth and shredders on the inside, and it sort of pulls its way forward by mulching and sucking in the thrash, and it pulls it forward, and then it sort of sprays like a green mulchy mess out of the back.
So you got a nice spray at the back too as you're going. That's fun.
Exactly. Yeah. You get a nice chlorophyll spray all over your back after the end of a long ride on one of these.
The thought in my mind is the Sopwith camel. That's a old ass World War I, World War II fighter plane. It's just this big turbine.
Wait, what does it look like?
Red Baron.
It's like a Red Baron plane.
How do you spell that?
Sopwith. And it just looks like the open end behind a turbine is just like an air intake, and I just imagine that just you're just strapped basically to the top of an airplane fuselage under the turbine.
Let me see. Oh yeah,
I like that. So you are kind of like cutting ahead as we.
he's cutting ahead, looking, cresting over some of the higher branches to see what's coming. Looping back around, giving some information when needed, but
Yeah.
mostly just sort of riding ahead.
And so you actually you mentioned something that I wanted to hit here a second ago, which is you mentioned cutting through the thrash. And so the Wildsea is kind of like broken down in these like rough topological levels that like wild sailors use to refer to. There are the skies above, not hugely important to you guys, although there are flying dangers to be worried about this world. And for some wild sailors who have converted their ships to being airships, this is like the primary mode of locomotion. But for most wild sailors and for most wild ships, the way that you travel is across the most traveled layer of the sea, the top of the sea, what we call the thrash. This is like the springy wave tops, the fields of leaves and light branches. This is where your saw prow will be cutting and dragging you forward through. And just below that is the tangle. The tangle is kind of the deepest place that most wild sailors ever travel, and it is a pretty large section of the Wildsea, but it is the kind of liminal space between the inhabitable and the inhospitable. It is, the branches themselves, densely tangled. It is where a lot of like predators and prey spend most of their lives. And there are some settlements, some signs of civilization here. But they are less common.
Low ports.
Yeah. This is also where most of like things like ruins and kind of like salvage are found. And then far below that are the sink and the drown. And the deeper you go, the less light there is as the branches above block out the rays of the sun. And the further apart the branches are, which leaves the kind of like increasing danger of slipping past all of them and falling all the way to the darkness under eaves, which is like the bottom. It's the surface. It's where the roots are found, and it is a place that no one goes and comes back from, right? It is kind of like the ultimate mystery in the world is what is down there and what is left from the old world there. It's kind of the stuff I imagine of myth and legend for most wild sailors, right? You might hear a story in a port about a guy who got down to the drown and looked down to see an enormous eye the size of a city looking back up at him before it blinked and disappeared, right? There's other people who tell you that it's just a mausoleum down there, a graveyard.
It's a real here be dragons on the
Absolutely. Well, here be dragons on the Wildsea also, but then the worse, scarier dragons be below. Yeah, you are mostly going to be traveling through the thrash with kind of like the bottom of the hull moving through the tangle. And so when we get like, as the outrider kind of starts taking off ahead, the saw prow of the Verdigale starts to spin up, right? The air starts filling with that freshly cut smell of like chopped and mulched vegetation as this enormous saw blade begins to spin. And Calithiel, you start to take us out on the sea.
Yeah, I think like we talked about the batteries being sort of rare here, right? That's what makes the Verdigale a special ship, thanks to Hex's engineering. And I think when that throttle kind of moves to full bore, there's like a crackling. I think you can hear it run the electricity like down the run of the ship. And this is not sci-fi aesthetic, smooth, clean line electricity. This is like bundles of cable where there's probably exposed copper. You can see it like threading together. And you can almost like hear the spark as it travels down the bow. And it smells like ozone. Like it crackles, it hisses. You can hear things like pop. As I think we start to feel that like pull forward. Cal has 4 arms on the wheel, I think kind of holding steady, and it gives like a little chop, like you're trying to hold something straight forward. And I think that this lurch sort of happens all at once. And we talked a little bit about what the actual treetop sea looks like. And for the listener at home, as we step into the theater of the mind, it is not a flat plane, right? Like when we talk about the Wildsea, in my mind, it's almost like there are areas that are like the Narrows or slot canyons where tall shanks rise high. It's uneven, it's choppy. The Krezerin forms and reforms quickly. And so I think there are unforeseen, rises and falls, crests and troughs, I suppose, in the green waves. And I think this first pass is, fast, but also probably a little rocky. And I think the Verdigale crests one of these waves, and it's like we aboard kind of brace right as it falls kind of hard that first time, and we push on, but steady as she goes.
Yeah, and I think these journeys are not one box on the journey track. I'm not thinking of as like one day, right? We're going to be kind of abstract here with time. So sometimes I think, we might say that this is like time passing, days of travel. And other times maybe we'll like zoom in and get a little bit more like specific with time. Yeah. So Reese, I think that you're the first person to feel this because you're on watch, right? As we're going forward. So you're the person who spies things before they start to happen.
Drop that bomb, King. I can see you brewing.
So, Reese, you are kind of like, mulching through the thrash here, eyes ahead. And we talked about this a second ago, but the waves on the Wildsea are always shifting, always kind of like moving. But ahead, you can see that there's like a kind of an undulation to the waves off ahead of you as you are traveling, right? And at first, it's you're looking at a field of green. It can be so hard sometimes just to like tell what's real or what is just your eyes playing tricks on you in the distance. But maybe there's like a patch of brightness, like of color, of some kind of like floral or vegetable growth that is kind of like in the distance, a thing that you can kind of lock your eyes on. And you can start to see that is rising and falling. And as you're kind of going, you can feel that judder, right? Like you can start to feel a juddering in the outrider, which we need a name for, our audience. Get on that Discord.
Please help us. Yeah.
So we're thinking Scooty Puff Jr. for now.
You feel yourself rocking in a way that's not just like the comfortable, normal motion of the outrider. This is, I think we mentioned them a second ago, but this is a root quake. It is the first tremors of a root quake. There is something shifting deep below the Wildsea that is causing the trees themselves to shudder and move, as the roots change and intertwine, and things are ripped up from the surface, and the topography of the Wildsea itself changes. But I think that you see it long before the real quakes get to you. And I think you have time here. You have time to like we haven't talked about yet how you like call out to the Verdigale. I don't know if this is like literally pulling up beside it and shouting, or if this is
maybe I have one of those what are those called, like the old-timey director things, the cones, I guess you call it a bullhorn, but it's a non-powered one. Perhaps is that what it's called? Hold on.
Like where it's sort of like a megaphone, right? Analog megaphone,
like
kind of thing.
Megaphone. Hold on.
Yeah, bullhorn, blowhorn, loudhailer, speaking trumpet.
I like a loudhailer.
Loudhailer?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Or the speaking trumpet. That's a little silly. It's a bit of a foppish word. I don't think we'll be using that one.
So you're on the speaking trumpet.
Don't live in Atlanta yet.
Nope. We'll all move there soon. Don't worry. So yeah, I think Reese takes out his loudhailer, which is, I feel like it's like built into like a compartment on the outrider. Like pops a hatch and it flings open, and he pulls the loudhailer out. It's kind of like it's on like a like maybe like a sort of cord too, in case you drop it.
Makes sense. Yeah.
He pulls it up and he calls. He's like, root quake ahoy! Am I using ahoy in the right context here?
I don't.
Ahead.
Maybe ahead.
Brace yourselves, men and women. And, non-binary crew members.
Bug guys.
Great. So I think, the thing I'll say here now, right, is you have time. You've caught this with more than enough time, Reese, to alert Calathiel, right? And so I don't think there's like a role here per se. I think maybe I can reveal here in this moment that I have rolled a 6 also. Or you rolled a 1, I rolled a 6. And what that means from my perspective is that this is a danger-free opportunity. So I'm going to do a couple things. First, I'm going to reveal a clock to you guys that I have just created. Not a clock. These are not clocks. We are not playing Blades in the Dark.
Nope.
This is a track. Excuse me. I'm creating a track right now. And I am going to mark 2 segments in it, and then I'm going to broadcast it so you guys can see it too. But this is a 5-segment track called The Growing Rootquakes. And I am marking 2 segments of this as, kind of ahead of you. I think you can see it now too, Calithiel, now that you've kind of like had your eyes pointed towards it. There's kind of a violent shuddering of the trees far ahead, but you are able to kind of slow it down a little bit to not drive right into that and get caught up in it.
Mm-hmm. Is this like, I'm like whipping the wheel around, trying to go around it? Like, does it seem like something you can't really avoid?
It's hard to avoid because it's not centralized per se, or it's localized, but it's like centralized ahead of where you're going. So you're kind of going into it no matter what. But
yeah, I'm imagining this as being like when you see one of those videos of like ocean liners and there's just like suddenly like the wave is like sucking up and building in front of you, and you're like, oh, there's like not a way you can go around this.
Yes, but it's mild actually, I would say, compared to like other rootquakes you've heard or seen before. This is a kind of a mild one. It is a shaking and a juddering, and you can see literally like treetops like shifting from one direction to another, like repositioning as they are kind of thrust around by the movements far below. But I think what it does reveal, right, is like a little bit of a valley starts to open up ahead of you, right, as kind of the tree line parts a little bit. And I think, this is like a pretty clear path to kind of carve your way forward through. One that will like kind of, it looks like it's fairly stabilized. And the other thing that I'll say is that, like, I think as you're kind of getting in, as these trees part to kind of form this valley, on either side of them, you can see that they are bright with kind of like these, they're all parasitic because they're all growing off of the trees themselves, but there are like vines hanging with heavy, colorful fruit on either side of the ship as you kind of start to guide towards this valley.
That seems like a trap. But boy, they look good. If only I weren't in this pilot bubble.
And so, that is I think kind of the thrust of the encounter here, right? There's you guys.
Okay.
I'm not. There's not another shoe to drop here. You guys rolled a danger-free opportunity.
So the quake is occurring. It's sort of not immediately threatening us, but the landscape is kind of like actively changing.
Yeah, it's shifting, which is happening all the time on the Wildsea. But what it has done is it's opened up like kind of a valley you can kind of nestle into.
Okay.
That is lined with these. I think that they are these kind of like blue-white, almost like mangoes. They look like that they're hanging down from like vines along either side of this kind of valleyway. Kind of like this nestled growth on either side. And I think if you want to pull into the valley, if you want to try and recover some fruit, like that is
Totally. I mean, right? Like we're about to go show up in a new port. I think Cal, takes the Chadburn, right? And I think like clicks it down like a notch or two and slap it on the echo box, right? Would be like, hex like slow on port side, right? And I'm going to throw the wheel and maybe I'm trying to put myself in this landscape, but there's nothing quite like it here unless you were peeking out over the top of a canopy in a forest. But I'm imagining this as being almost like an up and over, sort of like we can crest this wave and find our way down into this valley. And I'm going to try and pull the Verdigale down into this valley and find some place to sort of anchor. So maybe we can actually wave walk.
I have an idea of how to harvest the fruit.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think that, we pull up to a branch that has these fruits under, that is bearing these fruits. I think Reese is going to pull up the Outrider to one of the base of the trees and climb up and try and get up in the branch and try and shake some down.
So this sounds to me like this might be a roll.
All right.
Right? To do a little bit of exploration as you guys kind of pull into this valley. Like, let's make our first roll of the game. Let's talk about how that works, right? Just like Blades in the Dark, like many other role-playing games, we are going to assemble a dice pool of 6-sided dice. We're going to roll these, and the results will tell us what happens, right? The way that works for us, right, is you're going to roll the number of these d6. The highest number that you roll out of all these d6 is going to be the result. And you're also going to read off whether you get any doubles. Doubles will introduce a twist, an unexpected outcome in addition to the usual result. And so a 6 will be a triumph, a complete success with no drawbacks. A conflict is a 4 or 5. It's still a success, but with a drawback of some kind. And a 1, 2, or 3 is a disaster. But let's roll back a second here and talk about how we decide what you're going to roll. So each character has what we call edges, and that's the first thing that's going to give you your first dice for this roll. And edges kind of describe not a specific skill, but like a broader way of approaching problem solving. An edge adds like kind of a narrative flavor to the rest of the action roll and changes the way you might use a skill. There are 7 edges. There's grace, which is an edge of elegance, precision, and agility. Iron, an edge of force, determination, and willpower. Instinct, an edge of sense, intuition, and reaction. Sharps, an edge of logic, wit, and planning. Teeth, an edge of savagery, passion, and destruction. Tides, an edge of exploration, learning, and lore. Or veils, an edge of shadows, ciphers, and secrecy. And so you are pulling up to these fruit, these kind of like hanging vines with this kind of like whitish blue fruit on them. What's the edge that you want to use here, Reese? Reese has 3 edges. I'm looking at your sheet right now, right? You have grace, tides, and veils.
I guess I'd like to use my grace to gracefully ascend.
Cool. So the grace is going to give you your first d6 for this dice roll. And then we will look at your skills. And there are about 20 skills, or 18 skills altogether, in Wildsea. We're not going to list all of them right now. Each character starts with a handful of them. And each skill can have up to 3 rankings in it. But they're kind of like broad categories of stuff you might do, right? You might scavenge, you might cook, you might delve, you might outwit, you might hunt or harvest, right? Harvest would be great here. Unfortunately, Reese has no points in harvest.
Yep, I was just looking at that.
So what skill do you want to use here? And you're going to add d6 equal to your rank in that skill to make this roll.
I'm going to use Vault, which I have 2 pips in.
You have 2 pips in Vault. And Vault is, what is it?
A skill of dizzying heights and impressive acrobatics. Use Vault to climb, leap, and tumble your way through an environment at speed.
So you're just like kind of climbing up here, right? Just moving quickly.
Yes.
All right. Then the last thing that we ask, right? So right now you're at 3d6. 1 for your edge, 2 for your 2 ranks in the Vault skill. The final thing that we want to add is, do you have an advantage? And an advantage is a little vague here. It can be up to 2d6 added, but it's anything you can use from your possessions or situations that works in your favor. This could be a piece of the environment, could be a resource that you have, or it could be an aspect of your character. And aspects are a thing we haven't talked about yet as much, but they are basically your character's special abilities and their gear. They kind of represent all of like the other unique facets of your character that are not contained in your edges or your skills. Or if you have a helpful crewmate, that could also give you an advantage here if someone wants to like help out in some way.
I mean, I'm always ready to lend a helping hand if he needs it.
How can you help, though? Hey, I'm here for you, buddy.
Looking great down there. No, I don't.
Hey, I see a foothold right there.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking with Hex's ability to like kind of craft things, if need be, he could be there to, toss a line down if you start to fall. I don't know. Maybe we just gotta handle
this one. Perhaps at some point, I have 1 piece of salvage.
What is it?
And that is a length of chain.
Oh, are you going to use the length of chain to help you up here somehow?
Perhaps I could use the length of chain to help me get. Once I get to the branch I'm trying to get to, I can use the length of chain to sort of zip line down the branch to where the fruit is.
Yeah, I think that's a viable option here. So the other thing I will say, right, is that by using a resource to give you an advantage, that will give you 1d6, but it opens up the possibility of that resource being damaged or destroyed if you don't succeed on this roll.
Oh, that's fine with me.
Then, yeah, why don't we go ahead? That is 4d6 altogether to climb and harvest some of these strange kind of blue-white fruits.
All right, let's roll the bones. I know we've already been some rolls, but this really feels like the first roll.
Yes. This is the first real action roll.
Yes.
Right.
3, 3, 4, 5.
Ooh, doubles too.
Oh, interesting.
We had the risky ping before. We're gonna need some sort of like wild clatter.
Rustling of leaves or something.
We'll work on those sound effects, folks. Don't worry. So a 5 is a conflict. It is a success with a drawback of some kind, which we'll talk about in a second. But it also has a twist. Whenever you roll 2 dice of the same number in a dice pool, there is a twist. A twist is an unexpected outcome in addition to the usual result. Often something small, but potentially useful. This twist can be suggested by any player at the table, but I have the final say as Firefly. So, Reese, you're climbing up there. You're starting to pull down some of these blue-white fruits, which I think as you're getting closer, I think that you would recognize. I'm looking at a big list of Wildsea fruit. Shout out also. In addition to the Great Main Book, there's a lot of supplements to the Wildsea already. There's a Storm and Root, which adds airships and submersibles. But there's this kind of smaller little supplement that I like a lot, which is the Ship Garden supplement that adds an entire like mini game system to the whole system for having gardens on the ship and planting stuff. And it's also just got like a billion different fruit and vegetables and other kind of things you could grow in your strange Wildsea garden. And so I think that these are what the game calls tarnanas. Yes, they are,
Bananas.
They've got this kind of like bluish white exterior. They're kind of like, mango banana shaped, I think, this kind of like curving, sloping shape. But they are known because they have a very delicate black kind of mush on the inside. Looks like black tar and tastes like sweet vanilla. They are like a delicacy for like desserts on the Wildsea.
What a succulent goop. I would love to try that.
Listen, you have a chef on the board who probably would be very excited to have some of these tarnanas, right? And so on a success, I'm definitely going to say that you're going to get a specimen here, which is a kind of resource, a fresh tarnana. I have an idea for a twist, but I'm curious if anyone else has any like ideas for a twist here, like a thing that...
Is it gumming up the works? My other thought is like, did we cut through any tarnana trees where we've got to like worry about the saw blades getting gunked up?
Oh, that's something, right? I kind of like that. Yes,
maybe I'm up there, right? And I'm kicking these fruit down. I'm like holding onto one branch and I've got my leg and I'm kicking these fruit down. And I imagine there's like crew members like going, oh, like walking back and forth with like a big sheet, to catch these fruits. And
I mean, you're looking at them.
Crew members.
We're a crew of 4.
Yeah.
Well, there's other people on the ship, right?
No.
Or is it just 4 of us? Well,
no.
it's you guys down on the ship.
Well, there's 5 of you altogether. There's Ixtalbor.
Yeah.
There is Claremont, and then there's you 3. And so Claremont's on the deck also, right?
Yeah.
I imagine he has actually got the snapograph, right? He's got this like deck-mounted photography thing, and I think he is like trying to catch an image of Reese climbing and collecting fruit. Like hold there, hold. I just need one more. And
so Ixtalbor and Hex and Cal are like have like a sort of sheet, like like in the old firefighter movies, and they're catching people who are jumping out of buildings, right?
You're just catching tarnanas.
Maybe I kick one and it like bursts, or it hits the prow, the saw prow, and bursts.
Is that the twist that we are interested in? Is like having the saw prow be kind of gunked up?
Yeah, I think that like kind of that's the best I got.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fun.
I think that's
Sure.
a fun twist. I think it's not just like a single piece of fruit, though, right? I think it's probably like there's a vine attached to that, right? That as it hits, right, when the saw blade spins up again, it starts to pull in more, right? Kind of this cluster of vines, and I think that what I'm going to do as a result there, is kind of the consequence for this like partial success, is I am going to mark a piece of damage to your saws, right? They are kind of gunked up. They need to be cleaned or taken care of before they will be back to their like full capacity, which means that if you need to roll something, whenever you do rolls that involve using the ship to do something, you roll the ship's different ratings. And the ship has different ratings, kind of like the characters have skills. It has armor, has seals, which represent how well sealed off it is from the different toxins and spores that populate the Wildsea. It has speed, how fast it goes. Saws, how good it is at cutting through the dense parts of the sea. It has stealth. And it has tilt, which is like a measure of its maneuverability. And I think the saws are going to be spinning a little slower until you can kind of clean them out.
It's also comically slippery on the deck. You are slipping on Tarnana peels left and right.
Yeah. Oh, that is so good, actually. Yeah. Excalibur lets out like an annoyed scream, like not scream, like a shout of anger. And there's a thump of like gunk as this big cactus man slips and hits the deck. And as he gets up, he has to press extra hard because he's got spines that are stuck in the surface of the wood. So he's like...
Oh, yeah.
Montclair, shortly thereafter, rushing after to go help. Again, banana peel. Ass up, flat on the
Cascading
ground.
Tarnana peels is pretty good, actually.
I'm like, Calthiel up in the pilot. Yeah.
Benny Hill music playing.
Earth is like, oh, boy. Okay, first voyage.
I see this dreadful... peel has caused me to slip.
Wow, what wonderful specimens these must be. Perhaps I'll collect a few myself. They could be quite delicious. And...
But you know what? I think because of your success here, I'm actually, instead of giving you a single specimen, or I guess I'll do both. I think you have a Tarnana. I'd take a fresh Tarnana. Reese?
Already marked.
I'm also going to give, you described this. I like the idea of like, you're just throwing them into like a sheet that they're catching them with. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give the crew a piece of cargo. Which is like fresh Tarnana hull. And so cargo...
Yes. You seem like when they dump those trawler fishing boats, like the deck is just like full of flopping fish. Is like yes. I'm imagining these Tarnanas
but it's
like
just,
are just
this black tar that smells like vanilla and these like blue peels sliding all over.
Oh God, it smells so scrumptious.
It smells great. Yes, I'm going to give you this piece of cargo. And cargo is another kind of resource in this game. Characters can have salvage, they can have specimens, they can have charts, they can have whispers. These are all different kind of measures of like little resources that you get. And cargo represents when you have enough of something that it's not just, what Reese might be carrying on him. It is when you have like enough that it is like an amount you could trade with someone if you needed to, right? For like real services. When we created the ship, we had to spend what the game calls stakes to buy each one of our different ship options. And each of those costed kind of a different amount of stakes. Roughly, the game tells us one piece of cargo can be traded in at a port for one stake's worth of ship upgrades or repairs. And so, when we get to Caldermere, you will have this hall of Tarnanas, which you will be able to... as is the kind of like mode of life on the Wildsea, trade for something else that you need instead. As long as you can get to Caldermere before these bananas go bad. These Tarnanas, rather.
We'll have to visit the prow sharpener when we get there.
Well, and I think like, stepping out as we're overlooking this, big horde of freshly caught Tarnanas in our hold. I think Caldermere stepping out of the berth or something, overlooking this, because from my position, I can kind of see the whole poop deck and all of the activity happening. And I think stepping out is like, it's just like overwhelming. It's like almost saccharine sweet, overwhelming. And I think that's like the first, like slap of, is that a bug or whatever? And then, my mind goes to, what eats Tarnanas?
It's a great question. I think Montclair gets up, right? He is covered, like his cream suit has been deeply besmirched with this like black tar that smells like vanilla. But he's got a big smile on his face, right? Even as he's like clearly had a time of it, like falling all over the deck. And I think, he looks at all of you and he smiles. He says, and an eventful first day on the first real leg of our journey together, gentlemen. This is a lovely hall, we'll be able to trade it in at Caldermere for certain, but there's something more exciting here that I think we should all take note of. And he reaches in, wiping his hands on his suit, and he pulls out like a sheaf of papers that has like one of those like seismographic charts he was looking at before. I told you, the rootquakes were growing stronger. A sign of them as we get nearer to Caldermere is an excellent sign of fresh salvage and new hope of discovery for us. And he looks to Ixtalbor and the rest of you, and he says, let's get this deck cleaned up as soon as we can and hit the sail again. We must drive forward.
You heard him, folks. Back to your stations.
Whatever you say, Captain.